Let me double check the audio. Testing. Let me double check the audio. Yeah, we're good. Hey, how are you doing? All right. So I've gotten a little bit done since the last time I streamed. I got the countertops taken care of. The dresser and door slides are all installed. I still need to build my last 5 drawers, but I got them sized properly to work for inset drawer fronts for this box. And then my 2 nightstands are sitting behind me, or behind this one. We also need to finish up the skirting board for one of the nightstands. I have one glued up sitting up top. So we're going to attach this one, glue up one tonight, and then we're going to get into drawer boxes. But actually, before I get my table saw switched over, currently it is set up to rip the bottom panels that I need for the rest of this plywood. So I'm actually going to rip that first, and then I'm probably going to break down the rest of the plywood that I have and run the dados and everything else I need for the plywood to get all that squared away before we switch over to doing rest of the stuff on the bench. Before I clutter this up, I want to make sure I get all my ripping done. So first step for me is to clear off the bench. We're going to run a piece of 1/4-inch plywood through here to make our bottom panel. And then we're going to go over to the miter saw, cut them all to length because I've already took measurements. I also made sure that that drawer box works in each one of the openings. So cutting 5 more the exact same size will work out. Let's clear this bench for our rip. For those guys who just joined in, what we're tackling is our nightstand and dresser build. We are going to be doing drawer boxes using the kreg edge to glue up another skirting piece. This one goes to one of the nightstands back over there. We're going to use the kreg edge to glue up another one of these. We're going to end up building several drawer boxes. These had to be a little unique, so I'm using 3/4-inch plywood because I wanted to go with red oak. I couldn't find 1/2-inch red oak. So using undermount drawer slides, I had to make a few changes to the actual measurements and how I cut and build the drawers, but I'll show you guys how we get that taken care of. And then we're going to get the other skirting attached, and if we're lucky, we'll get the drawer slides and everything else mounted in our 2 nightstands tonight. Main goal, though, is to get the rest of these drawer boxes for the dresser done, and then kind of progress everything else if we can. I've also come up with a really cool method to cut all of my pieces for the drawer boxes. I'm essentially using both stop blocks on my miter saw and then a stick that I cut to work. So I have 3 different measurements set up on my stop block on the miter saw so I can cut my bottom panel, the fronts and backs, and the sides without having to break out a tape measure. And I'll show you how I do that once we get over to the miter saw. But it's pretty efficient. It'll allow me to pretty much batch out all my pieces. And I think it's pretty cool how I got it set up. We'll get into that again. We're after we rip down this piece of plywood, and I think I need to make 6 total rips of 3/4-inch plywood, and that'll give me enough material for all of my drawer boxes. And then the only thing we're going to be cutting tonight, there will be the drawer boxes for the dresser. The nightstands will come tomorrow. But yeah, let's get to ripping. I gotta move that razor blade out the way. That should be good. And what I want to do before I start assembling stuff on my workbench, I kind of want to again get my table saw and routing processes taken care of. So the first thing we're going to do, now we have that ripped, I'm going to go ahead and rip my 3/4 inch plywood. And I think I need to break down another sheet with my track saw. I need another 6 rips at the front drawer box size. How you doing? Thank you guys for joining in. And if you guys missed what we're tackling, we're building a custom red oak dresser and nightstand. And then as we get further along the project, we do have a complete bed set to do. Currently, we're working on drawer boxes. The top, I got lucky enough to get the kreg edge early for a build challenge. And I've been using that throughout the build. Today, we'll probably just use it to do the skirting piece. So I'll show you guys how I use that to make these. I have one up here. It's going to wrap around one of the nightstands. We have to make one more. So I'll show you how to use the kreg edge and cut those joints and work out a miter with the kreg. But what I'm going to do next is pull this to the side. And then we're going to break down the 3/4 inch plywood that I need. And then probably I got to break down another sheet. And then where's my sample piece of where did I put it? It's a sample drawer side piece, so I can get my width set up on the table. So I have a small piece here. I would much rather a long one. I guess I'll just use this one. That will work. And I'll probably need to switch the camera to the other side. And I believe at this setting, I can get 4 rips. I have a small piece left over. I need a total of 6. I'm going to make 7 just to make sure that we have enough. So I'm going to take another full sheet after this, break it out with the track saw, and come back and rip it. But one thing I want to make sure of is I do that before I change my fence settings. Because there's going to be a lot of ripping operations for cutting dados and everything else throughout this build. How you doing? Thank you for joining in. And currently we're tackling a dresser and drawer build. Well, we're doing the drawers for the dresser right now. Let's set the depth on the table saw. Yes, Just saying. I forget, for me to run 8-foot material, I have to close this door. And I have like 8 foot 4 inches. Oh, I gotta move that one clamp back down. Yeah, I plan this out to have like 8 foot 4 inches to the back of the door. Well, the door must be closed for me to get anything else 8 foot that's further to the side of the blade. If it's like toward the middle, I can kind of open up both doors and kind of fit through there. But if the doors are kind of open halfway, I end up bumping into the doors. And that was going to be an uncomfortable mistake once I started up the blade. And let me see what chats I missed. How you doing? And yes, if you missed the beginning of the stream, what we're tackling is a custom dresser and nightstand build. It's all made of solid red oak, well, minus the drawers. Undermount, soft close drawer slides. And then we have 2 nightstands sitting behind the dresser. We have the countertops made, and then we have the apron for one of the nightstands. We have the other nightstand apron to do, and drawer boxes. So the goal for the night really is to get all my drawer boxes done. If I can manage to do the other apron for the other nightstand and get the drawer slides mounted and those 2 nightstand boxes, I think that'd be a really big accomplishment for the day. But we'll see where we get to and how productive we can be in a short period of time. All right, that's 4 rips, but we need a total of 6. I'm gonna do 7 because I couldn't find that other small piece around here. So we're gonna pull these back. Yes, most definitely. Thank you. I think this might actually end up being one of the coolest though, because I've been wanting to do furniture for a really long time, but being in construction or having the construction background, bookshelves, doors, it's kind of where I got stuck at. So and cabinets, but I guess this is just a cabinet, but most cabinets are gonna be made of plywood. This one being that the client really wanted it made out of hardwood, allows me to kind of express myself a little bit more throughout the project, and it's been pretty awesome. Yeah, I think once I get everything stained and get the bed set and everything else done, it's gonna look phenomenal. This is gonna have a large mirror, and actually, I think my clipboard's right up here. For those of you guys who haven't seen what we're working on, again, looking at a picture through a camera probably isn't the best way to visualize what we're tackling, but we're doing a full bed set. It's going to be an Alaskan king-size bed with 2 nightstands on either side and a mirror, shelf, and everything else with some electrical in there and the dresser off to the side. It's going to be a pretty cool build. The client came up with the design themselves, and it's just up to me to execute. For these drawer slides, I just kind of divided up the space evenly. So once I had the carcass built, just kind of took the space. Well, I knew that my dividers were going to be 3/4 of an inch. And after I figured that out, I just decided, so after my carcass was built, I took these 3/4 inch pieces, stacked them on the bottom, and then measured what's left, and then kind of just divided that up by 3. And yes, it's red oak. And as far as the drawer slides, I will say these being inset drawers, these being undermount drawer slides, 1, first time ever working with them. 2, I've also done anything inset except for those 2 TV stands I recently built. So those are inset hinges though. So inset drawer slides plus them being undermount drawer slides. Then the fact that I didn't know undermount drawer slides, you need to use 3/4 inch, half inch plywood or 5/8. If you use 3/4, you have to end up cutting an extra rabbet on your side panel to make sure it can actually fit in between here. Then that maximum allowable tolerance is 5/8. So I had to do some extra math to kind of make sure everything worked. Then plus, because my drawer fronts or my false fronts are thicker because they're 3/4, this box is 16.5 and these are 16-inch slides. So to get it to work, I had to do some math because originally I cut some and they didn't work. So I just went 16-inch sides, did the standard, I think 1 5/8 subtracted from the overall width, and that didn't give me what I needed because the extra stuff I had to do. Lessons learned. Now I'm debating if I can break down this next sheet of plywood without clearing off the rest of my bench. I think I got enough space. I want 3 more rips. Those rips are at 5.5, 5.25. Let me see. Like 5 3/8. So I probably can rip that 15. 16, we'll probably go like 17, maybe 18 inches, just as a round number, then run everything else through. And then I do need to rip another piece of 1/8 inch plywood because, 1/4 inch plywood. No, I don't. I have enough for all those drawer boxes. All right, cool. Let me get the tracks out. We'll break down the next sheet of 3/4. I do apologize to anybody who knows that I love to watch Ron Paul, and a lot of my stuff is inspired by him. He'll be appalled to see me cutting on foam. Definitely 3/4 inch runners mounted to your dog hole benches is definitely the better way to go as far as something to cut on. I just haven't made any, but I'm going to have a ton of 3/4 inch plywood left over. I plan to eventually make a bunch. And let's see, if I do 48, how much of that's hanging off? Pretty much everything I'm cutting. So yeah, let me move these drills and stuff so I can actually have room to do this. Which razor blade works? Put those up there. So I'm going to be needing those later. Wrap square in the calipers. This can go down below. These can go down below for now. Also, I didn't think about it before I assembled that drawer box. I'm going to be staining them, so I'm going to have to disassemble it. So today, I'm just going to cut them all. Probably won't be putting all the drawer boxes together, strictly because I'm about to take them apart again. But I wanted to get one put together just for proof of concept and make sure that it worked how I wanted it to, make sure it fit, etc. And since now I know it does, I can just use my stop blocks and everything else to make the process repeatable. All right, let's slide these foam cushions over a little bit. All right, what else I want to rip, like 18 inches. Just want to make sure that both sides of the cut are supported when you go through with your track saw. And anybody who's new to my channel, if you don't know, definitely didn't always have a track saw. I got this less than 3 months ago. And before I had that, I broke down plywood with a straight edge made out of a 6-foot piece of LVP and my circular saw. So if you don't have a track saw, no worries. There's definitely ways to get around not having every single tool in the book. But one thing I can say is the track saw has been a nice addition. All right, boss man, you take it easy. Thank you for joining in. On the betas, do I need to run my dust collection hose to the saw for this one cut? I think it'll be all right. Because then we're going to be going right through the table saw to make 3 more rips at our drawer box heights. So let me get that set on this mark. And we'll double check that. So actually we'll slide it down just a little bit too, to make sure it can plunge all the way through. Parallel guides are definitely something I plan to add to my track saw accessory kit. So I'll make stuff like this a lot easier. We'll set our depth to a little over 3/4. And then we'll grab me something to drink, and then we're going to go back to the table saw to rip up this 3/4 inch plywood, run our dado, and then we'll head to the router table to do a round over on the top and bottom. All right, let's finish up these rips. And then we'll switch over here to, actually, no, we'll do the dado. Then we'll switch over here for the round over on the top. This is also why you kind of want to make all your drawer boxes at the same time. Because I had ripped two previously before I redid all these, I kind of want to re-rip those even though they already have the round over profile on the top, just to make sure that they're all exactly the same size. And I'll just rerun these through the router table. It might not take off much. It actually looks like it's not going to take off anything. I've actually set the table saw perfect and not need to do that. Scratch that. I think we actually nailed that on setting the table saw back up. Perfect. So I don't need to rerun these two pieces. The next thing I need to do though is set up for our data. And for undermount drawer slides, you need to have a 1/2 inch from the very bottom of the drawer box. We're going to pull over from the fence, bring her all the way into a 1/2 inch. There we go. And I want to make sure it matches the settings on my other one. So let me lower the blade and we'll get the same depth setting. And yeah, with this piece up against the fence, the carbide is rubbing on the inside of the dado. And now we want to get the depth. It's currently lifting up off the table right now as I crank the handle. So I'm going to lower the handle until my piece sits firmly on the table saw. And make sure it doesn't lift up anywhere. That way I know I'm getting the highest point of the blade. Then I can lock it down. Now the very first cut of my dado, you can set up a dado set, but in this case we're using some 1/4 inch pre-finished plywood. I don't think a dado set is necessary, so I'm not using one. I wanted to use feather boards, but the width of this piece, my feather boards are too close to the fence to make this cut. So I can't. We're just going to be running these through. I think it took about 2-3 passes to get our dado width. So we're going to get that cut, and then we're going to head over to the router table to do our round over profile on the top. There's multiple ways to finish off a drawer box. You can edge band everything, but if you're using a higher quality plywood with no voids, you can do a simple round over on the very top, and if you stain or lacquer it afterwards, it's going to look just fine. I want to cut a couple test pieces. My miter saw is currently covered though, so we're just going to use a handy dandy jigsaw and cut a couple short lengths. Now we can run through the table saw and we'll test the table saw fence settings on these pieces before we run them all through. So now what we want to do is move the fence that way. And essentially what that's going to do is keep making our groove larger and larger, but keeping that half-inch distance from the bottom like we want. Oops. I'd already moved the fence before I made the test cut. Good thing I looked at the scale on the fence, so it was easy to set back up. Let's run all 4 of these pieces over, then we'll start moving the fence over to adjust our curve. Now we'll move the fence over about a 1/16. And we'll take a second pass. It's still tight. I'm going to run that setting on all these pieces, and then I'm going to do a final adjustment to make sure I get it fitted just right. Phew. All right. Now this whole stack is cut with the same data width as this one, or as all my sample pieces, and they're almost fitting. They're just a little too snug. So this is where the sample pieces will really come in handy. I'm going to move the fence very little, test it, and then we'll kind of get our final setting. Because we should be able to get it in our last blade pass. And just make sure that you don't overshoot it to where the panels get loose or sloppy. I think that might actually be too much. Nope, that's actually perfect. All right. Oh, now we just got to run the rest of these pieces to get that set. All right, the next step is the router table. We're going to route an 1/8 inch round over on the top and bottom of all my pieces, which will make them nice and smooth, easy to handle, and just overall, I think look better. So let's see, we'll probably put the camera out here on the ground. All right. Those two are already done. Let's slide our fence back. Let's get you guys in a halfway decent angle. Set up the outfeed roller. All right. This, I'm just going to set the fence even with the bearing of the router bit. Lock down one side. And then make sure the other side is pressed up against it and we're even with the bearing. And then I can lock that down as well. Want to make sure our feather boards are still set up for 3/4 inch material. This one's a little tight. There we go. We'll switch over our dust collection. If you guys are curious, underneath this wing of my table saw, I just have a rigid shop vac and a 5-gallon bucket with a dust topper separator. So, and I kind of just switch hoses for whatever tool. I leave like a dedicated hose for my sander, a dedicated hose for my table saw, and I just swap them into my dust topper. That goes there, and now I just need to run the top edge of all of my drawer parts. We have our dado down here on the bottom, and they're all facing the same direction. Make sure. So I just need to run it through, flip it over, and run it again, and now get both sides. Cut on the dust collection. Out, pull it back, over. We have a crisp 8-inch round over on the side. Congratulations. And after that long process of the table saw and the router table, we have all the pieces we need to make up the drawer sides, backs. We have it rounded over on the top side, which just makes it a lot better to handle and fill and whatnot. So we have our stop block set up on our miter saw for all the cuts we need. That would be the next station. We'll head over there and batch out all the pieces we need for all these drawer boxes. Then we need to cut off on the back panel. You end up cutting off pretty much from the top side of the rabbet all the way down. So we'll leave our table saw set up how it is. And once we cut all of our back panels, we'll just run them through the table saw with the same setting, which will cut this bottom section off. Then after that, we need to cut rabbets on our side panels. And actually, before I change that, I do want to take apart this one drawer box and run the dados through this at that setting just to make them a little bit looser. They're currently tight right now. I am glad I can be an assistance of assistance. Slide all that over there. And let me grab impacts. Yeah, this one's put together. I didn't tack the bottom panel because I want these to be removable. But currently, this is just really, really tight. So this needs another pass through the table so I can make that dado just a little bit roomier. Where did I put my kreg screws? They're on the box on the other side, so that was good on there for now. Let's loosen up the front. And as you guys can see, it is quite tight. So we're gonna run this back through the table saw with that current setting just to smooth that out a little bit. This one doesn't need to get ran through. Actually, if the dado gets taller, this one will need to get ran as well. Excuse me. Let's switch the dust collection back to the table saw. This one's going to need to get ripped, but again, before I change my settings, I'm going to cut all those in length and then rip my back panels. And then this one's just going to get a tad bit shorter. I'm going to have to rip it from this direction of the table saw and just run it back like that. All right, miter saw. Actually, I'm going to bring you guys all the way back here so you can see how I made batching out these pieces nice and easy. It's pretty simple what I did. I set up both cuts. The first one with the stop block. The second one, I have a stick or a story pole that I add to the stop block, which gives me my other cut. And then there's a stop block over here on this side. And this one is for all of my plywood. So I can do my front panel, back panel, and then my two sides. And essentially, I can feed my boards coming directly from this side, chop twice, throw this in there, chop twice, and that finishes up an entire rip. That gives me all four sides for each one of the drawer boxes. And then when I come to do the plywood, I flip that stop up, bring this one down, and then I can cut all of my bottom panels. Make sure everything's locked down, make sure everything is really repeatable, and quick and easy. 1 and 29 and 3/16 is exactly what we want. And then we'll cut 2. And again, after doing math, it actually works better to get 2 fronts. Front, back, and your 2 sides out of one piece, and it with less waste. And then again, you just use your little story pole, put it up to your stop block. And how I figured that out, I measured out what my side pieces need to be, which was 16 and a half, made a mark, and then I just took a stick. I figured out how long it needed to be cut with it butted up against my stop block to give me my 16 and a half. And now, without measuring, I can cut all 4 pieces to each drawer box. Nice and easy. And that would make 2 drawer boxes for the large dresser. I need a total of 6. So I need to cut up 4 more boards. And it really doesn't matter which one I cut first, whether it's the 16 and a half. Or the 29 and 3/16. And I'll take the stick out the way. So that's 2, 3, and 3 more. Two more. I remember one of those rips had a big stain on it, and I think I cut it up. I might replace that piece instead of trying to sand it off, because these need to get stained. No need to make my work harder than it needs to be. See, these long pieces. Yeah, these little splotches on the board. It might sand out fairly easy. Actually, I guess I could test it and see. Oh yeah, never mind. They'll come out. So don't need to cut an extra one. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. There's one already in there. So we need one more. And then that leaves us with 4 rips to make all of the boxes for the nightstands. All right, this is all my side pieces. These are going to need to go to the table saw to get a rabbet to make the 3/4 inch plywood work. And then half of my front and back stack right here is, the backs. And the backs need to get cut right along that curve right there. So I'm about to drink some water, smoke a cigarette, take a quick little breather, and then we're going to cut the excess off by using the same table saw setting. I don't have to reset anything. We'll cut that a little bit off. Then we'll go ahead and trim the other back panel, set up for our rabbets. Then we can pocket screw everything, and then we'll set everything aside, and that'll be all the parts of the drawer boxes. Everything still needs to get sanded and stained, but that'll at least be all the parts made up. And I can probably sand them tonight, tomorrow, stain them, and get them put into the box. Woo. Let's move these to the other side of the table so in the room. There you go. Plenty. This is trash. Don't need to keep moving that around. All that material will get messed with probably tomorrow. Let's see. Now that I get all the drawer box material made up, we're gonna go ahead and do the kreg edge joinery for my skirt, and then probably actually attach the other skirt that I glued up to the other knife. I haven't charged this battery in the last 2 or 3 days. I need to make sure it's still good. The first thing that needs to get ripped will be half of the, I guess, front and back panels. We're doing a total of 6 drawers. One of them's already inside the box. So we have 5 parts over here. 5 drawer box parts. A total of 10. Well, I guess 5 fronts, 5 backs. But the fronts and backs are identical. But I need to rip off the rabbited section off of 5 of these. And what I'm going to want to do is flip everything around so the rabbit side is already facing the fence, so you can't make any mistakes. I'm going to flip the face up so I don't need to raise the blade a bunch. And this blade is already set to where the teeth are right here at the edge of this. So if I use that same setting and run it through, these will still be the same height as the front, back, and sides. But I'll be able to screw and or staple my bottom panel directly to this, making the drawer boxes, repairable. Heaven forbid the bottom ever falls out or whatever. It'll be nice to be able to repair your drawer boxes. And since I'm building this for a client, warranty is always something I'm thinking about. How can I repair or fix anything that I build in case anything ever goes wrong? So definitely want drawer bottoms that can be replaced. And I haven't done the math for the nightstand drawer boxes, but the front and backs are going to, well, this one worked. It was just too short as far as front and back, but I'm actually downgrading from 16 to 14-inch slides. That's awesome. So yeah, these are 11 and a half, and we're going to need a total of 12 of these. So I could go ahead and rip the ends off of, I'll just reset up the table saw. It doesn't matter. I'll just reset the table saw when I get to doing the nightstand drawer boxes. I don't want to cut it now or cut one of those strips now. Oh, excuse me. Let's see. 11 inches, so I can get 88. So I can get 8 of them. I'll still need 4, so I need 44 inches. I think I have a short piece, though. If this is 48 inches, I could rip a full stick. This isn't 48, though. It's like 3 foot. Yeah, 41. So I'll still have to cut one out of there. So I'm going to wait until I get there tomorrow. All right, the next thing I need to do is actually pull out that drawer box, take that one apart, and set up the rabbet that I need to cut on all of my side panels. And then this back panel needs to be ripped to the same width. As these ones. How you doing, Bubba? Beautiful. We're going to use this side panel as a reference to set up our fence. That should do. And I need to rip all of my side panels. Perfection. Next thing that needs to get done is pop screws and my fronts and backs. And then we can go ahead and cut the plywood. Well, we'll clamp a piece together. We'll kind of confirm the sizes of the drawer box. And if it matches, we'll go ahead and cut all 5 of my plywood bottoms using the stop block I already have set up. Let's see, where is my drill? How you doing, boss man? You caught me this time. All right. Yep. We're gonna rinse and repeat and drill all these pocket holes, and then we have all of our parts for all 6 of these drawer box. Oh no, we still need the bottom panel, but we'll get all these drilled out. Drill out the ones on the fronts. And then I have a bunch of sanding ahead of me tomorrow. Sanding, staining, and then we gotta apply the finish, which is probably gonna be an oil finish on the drawers. I haven't fully decided on the actual box. Me and the client originally spoke about an oil finish, but they did mention they want it really glossy. I'm like, with Oldie's oil, the gloss actually comes from how high you can sand it up beforehand. But because this is getting stained, I can't sand above 150. So there may be a buffing process I can use to get it really glossy with Oldie's oil. Through the bedroom set, I would say at this point, I would call the dresser and nightstands halfway. So I would say maybe like 45%, give or take, because we just finished cutting all the parts for all the drawer boxes, minus the nightstands. We have all the milled with the dado and everything else in it. Does not cut to length. So we have the 2 nightstands back there. We have the tops. And then I have one of the skirting pieces made up, and I have it attached to the dresser itself. We're going to be today, if I get to it, gluing up one more skirt piece. I'm gonna show you guys how to use the miter function on the kreg edge, and we're gonna end up gluing up one of those and then attaching the one that I already have glued up. My phone can last about 2.5 hours. Maybe two and some change. Currently, we're sitting at 40%. So it's really just about how long can it last. Huh. That's funny. But yeah, we're at like 48%, so we'll see how far my phone can make it tonight. But I will get all these pocket holes and probably sand it tonight, stain them up. I want to get the skirting attached to one of the nightstands, get the other one glued up. And then the only thing that would be left on the dresser and nightstand is drawer fronts, attaching the handles, final sand and stain. But the sanding and staining is going to happen all at the same time because my electrician is going to be cutting holes for light switches and outlets and everything else. So my goal is to get it functioning, get all the boxes in there, get the drawer fronts on, and then I'm probably going to stick it inside of a room inside the house and then start building up the bed. I think the bed in my head will be easier than the dressers and nightstands. But technically the bed itself is still going to have 4 drawers, so it's almost like building, I guess another dresser and stuff. I do have headboards to build for the dresser and the nightstands and the bed. So actually maybe closer to like 30%. We might be closer to 30, but again, I believe the more technical portion, like the headboards and everything else, those are going to be really easy to make. The bed itself, I think, is going to be a lot easier just because I'm not, this I had to figure out joinery and how to glue stuff together. The bed is going to be 3 rails that I'm going to use their standard bed hardware to kind of hook together. So it's almost like milling or making up boards versus having to join a whole bunch of stuff together, make sure all that's square and all the other stuff. This is a little bit more complicated in my opinion. But I don't know. I haven't started the bed yet. We might start that and not be here for another 3 months. Not really. I don't think it's going to take me maybe like another 2 weeks before we get to stain and finish. Probably won't have the mirrors on hand yet, though. I think that'll probably be the last thing I get, just so I don't have to worry about storing that inside the shop as well. Craig gave me the Kreg Edge. That's been pretty awesome. I would love to get the Kreg Foreman. I think after the Kreg Edge challenge is done, I might reach out and see if I can try that out, or even maybe one of their routers. They are coming out with a whole new line of trim routers and plunge routers. I'm doing all right. I hope everybody else who's watching is doing okay as well. Total of 12. Right now we have all the parts cut for 6, but I have all the, I guess, technical joinery out the way for all 12 of them. Tomorrow all I have to do is cut the shorter ones to length. I've done the math on it. I just haven't set up my stop blocks and stuff. My goal today was trying to get rid of some of that 3/4 inch plywood over there, get rid of the stack of plywood I had sitting in the back of the shop. I won't be able to stain them tonight because I don't have that kind of time. But tomorrow, when I get back to the house, I'm going to stain and then assemble. Well, I'll probably stain and then apply a finish, and then assemble all the drawer boxes and start building the other ones. So hopefully by the end of tomorrow, everything's done minus maybe the drawer fronts. We'll see what I can get done. Actually, I have something else to do tomorrow. We'll do what I can. All right, that's all of the pocket holding that needs to get done. I don't know what number that is. I'll call that later. This is all of my drawer box material, all milled up, cut to length, and ready to go. Oh, but I do need to test and make sure that this drawer box is exactly the same size as the other one, so I can cut my bottoms. Who's 309? Where did I put the tape? $30 and a quarter. And then later. Thank you. Yes. Okay. I'm currently live right now. 30 and a quarter. And then 16 and a quarter. So yeah, I can actually cut all of my drawer bottoms to the same dimensions. Let me go take all my drawer parts and set them out the way. And we'll cut all of our drawer bottoms. We're using some pre-finished birch plywood for the bottoms. So those don't need to get stained or finished or anything else. But the red oak side panels and everything else in the box, that's going to be stained. You can actually move the other stop blocks. I'm not cutting any more drawer parts to this size. So I'm just going to flip it up for now, just in case I end up needing to recut one. This plywood we ripped to 16 1/4 at the very beginning of the video. So that is the overall width. And then I just butted up to my stop block. You guys see the stop block? Yeah. And then we're just going to make all of our cuts. But we want to have our pre-finished side down to try to eliminate as much tear out as possible and get our cuts looking as crispy as possible. Also, wouldn't heavily recommend that lifting technique unless you feel slightly comfortable with a miter saw. But it's a way to kind of increase the capacity of your miter saw. And then we're able to get 3 pieces out of every full sheet. I've already gotten one out of that sheet. And just like that, we now have all of our bottom panels cut. All right, so the next thing on my agenda is to glue up the other skirt board. It's going to go around the bottom of my nightstand. It's going to be a little tight. We just cut up our skirting board. It's going to go around the bottom of this. I'm going to set our miter saw to 45 degrees. Cut the 45 on 3 sides. Mark the front right here on the back side. Cut that. And then we'll cut the back side square afterwards. We'll glue that together. Move this off to the side. And then we'll attach the skirt, whatever we glued up this morning, to the other nightstand. It's my game plan anyway. We'll see, again, how far we get into all that. Next step for me, we'll be back at the miter saw. I'm going to set it to 45 degrees. And we have milled up all of our red oak for this. I believe it was the last string. One thing I want to look for is a snipe. And make cutting out all the snipe with this first miter. And to make it a little bit more visible for me, I can always take a pencil and make a mark. I'm going to keep it pressed firm down. All right. This piece here, you want to press this corner together nice and tight. And take your pencil with this pushed up against the nightstand. And you're going to scribe the backside. And you want to cut this long and work back to your mark. Again, if it was interior casing or whatever else, you need to go buy another stick. But the time to mill up and make another one this exact width, the exact thickness, so you can even make a secondary attempt, really isn't worth it. Between the cost of the material and the time it's going to take you to do it, try to take your time getting it right the first time. My recommendations. So we're going to cut it long, test it, see if the angle needs to be changed, etc. But I've already checked the cabinets and they're pretty darn square. I think one of them was out by like a 16th from corner to corner. That looks good. Once these get clamped up and glued together, the miters are going to look great. A little bit of sanding, and they'll be good to go. The next thing I need to do is mark for the back side, which is just as simple as holding it up front. And then just marking the back side. Also, another thing, if I end up leaving these just a tad long, this is something I can always come back and flush trim. That's not really such a big deal. But I do want to mark them. This one is the bottom left. This is the bottom left. Because these joints are going to be mating. I want to keep that in mind. And this one is the bottom right. Now let's trim these on the miter saw, and we can get into attaching them together with the kreg edge. All right, the next part, we'll be using the kreg edge to get this ready for glue up. So what I did previously, I used the reference pins, came off the edge, and then plunged the hole, and then plunged the second hole. And then what I'm going to do is plunge one hole from the bottom at one setting, and then come from the top. So my goal is to try to keep it from being able to twist as you glue it up. The fence on the kreg edge is already set up at 45 degrees. Actually, let me grab some water before I continue. Whew. You see, I'll wet the rag when I'm actually ready to glue it up. Actually, not 100% sure this is going to line up the way I'm thinking. But doesn't hurt to try. We have our plunge depth and everything else already set up. I'm going to use the registering pin off on one side. Use this hand to keep everything locked in place. Turn on the edge. and make a plunge. The reason why I marked the bottoms, because right now what I'm doing is the first plunge is at the 1.5 inch depth from the top, but I'm referencing the pin off the bottoms of each one of the pieces. So to make sure that each one of these holes all line up, I need to make sure I reference the bottom, and then I'm going to change my fence settings and then reference from the top, which will give me 2 offset slots, which will make this glue joint, 1, a little easier to clamp together. 2, I still feel a little bit stronger having tendons in there, make it a little less likely to break. Oh, let me get the lights out the camera. Make sure we reference our pin off the bottom side. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do is adjust our fence settings, and we're going to make plunges referencing the top, which will give us an offset hole on the bottom side and slightly up, so we can use 2 tendons, but not have them directly in line, which should keep it from being able to rack. We're going to see. Earlier, I actually stacked them on top of each other, but I think I'll get better results. So you can go from 3/4 down to 3/8. And then this time we're just going to reference from the top instead of the bottom, which will give us another slot, but offset. So that's the bottom. Now we're going to reference the top. Now let's see how this joint comes together. Where did I put the tenons? Those are the 8 millimeters. I've used a lot of 6s on this project. I think it's about time that I start using some others before I run out. That comes together nicely. And clamps will lock that into place. Most importantly, though, I need to make sure that it fits around the nightstand how I want it. And if it does, we can go ahead and glue this together. Yeah, that's going to work out. So I can actually move this nice thing completely out of my way, glue this together, and then I can actually attach the other nightstand skirt if we have enough time. Where's my phone percentage? We're looking at 28. I might be able to finish up this glue up, and that probably might be it. Because, yeah, I don't want it to die in the middle of the stream. I do apologize. I wanted to be able to get to the actual attaching this to the nightstand. But just for reference, what I do is I take a piece of tape, run along the front side, maybe like on the dresser, I put like 5 locations. This one I'll probably pick 3. And I'll set the fence on my kreg jig to plunge probably about 1/4 inch down from the 3/4 inch lip. And then I just do the offset. So if this is going to be 1.25 inches, I want this to lip over this by 1/4 inch. Then I need to subtract a 1/2 inch or whatever that is. So it might be, what is that? 3/4 on the actual jig when I plunge it into here to make it line up. Those will allow me to register it when I flip it upside down. And then I'm going to drill some oversized holes inside the carcass and actually screw the skirting in from there and use a little bit of glue and stuff like that. On the dresser, I wanted to use tenons along the side, but you really can't because you're not going to be able to assemble it, and you're not going to be able to slide it backwards after doing this type of assembly. So the best method is to assemble this, use tenons on the front side to help align it, and then drive some screws from the inside to help secure it along with some glue. But let's actually glue this up. And that will be the end of the stream, I think. Let me grab a wet rag. And I'm gonna need a couple more clamps. There's 2 there. We'll need at least 2 more. And we should be good to get this together. My methodology is to spray a little bit of glue on the face, squeeze some down into the holes. Probably can go lighter on the face strictly because once I drop the tendons into the holes, they're going to squeeze out a good little bit. Get that glue applied, but then when you drop your tenon into the mortise, you get more squeeze out. And with that, both sides have been glued. All I need to do is drop a little bit of glue into these mortises. And then put everything together. First clamp will go across the face. You want to make sure everything is perfectly flush and sitting tight on your table. And you want to clamp closer toward the end of the miters to try to pull those two together. Now you're going to take another clamp and go on the top side of the miters. Help push all that together. And then two more clamps. To lock it together in this direction. And then you want to be real careful, slide it off the edge and try to wipe up this underside because that's where all the glue is going to squeeze out. And a whole bunch of sawdust or whatever is going to stick to it, which will just make for more sanding later. Clean all that up. And then that's good to sit and dry. Tomorrow we'll get everything installed and go into the drawer boxes. I think that's where we're going to end it tonight, guys. What we got done, we glued up another skirt. We have all the drawer box pieces completed, ready for assembly. Well, need to get sanded, then they'll be ready for assembly. I got all my slides installed today. Tomorrow we'll get my slides in that box installed into the nightstands back there. Well, one there and one up here. And then we'll pretty much be ready to get these out of the garage. Well, we got drawer fronts. and leveling feet, and I'm gonna make a little block feet, but I'm also gonna put some leveling feet up underneath to allow you to actually adjust it in case the floor or whatever isn't perfect. But if you guys have enjoyed this, please smash that like button, leave me a comment and subscribe. Ask any questions you guys have about the Kreg Edge. Because again, at this point, I've had it for probably about 3 weeks, maybe a month, and I've used it extensively for this project. I've used on miters, on vertical rails. Vertical styles, several different joinery techniques. So I think I've gotten a fair bit of use out of it, and I think I can answer pretty much any question that you guys may have about it. But also, if you guys have enjoyed, let me know down below. Please smash that like button, leave me a comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.